select malls. We move forward right now, and we've got our next presenter going to join us on stage with the topic balancing consumer experience with ROI in dynamic in-store displays. We welcome onto stage right now someone who brings with him 19 years of experience in retail and project management, working with some of the best global brands, where he has spent 15 years in various countries, regional and global levels. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on the stage Director of Global Store Design and Construction, Levi Strauss and Company, Mr. Akash Jha. Welcome. 3, 2, 1, go! Welcome, 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 sir.
Can you hear me? Is it working? Yes. Okay. Wow. So my name is Akash, and I'm working with Levi Strauss Co as a director for brand experience. Basically, it's all about managing the store design and construction globally. The topic we are going to discuss today is ROI, balancing the consumer experience with ROI of digital display. I don't know how many designers or store designers are in the room. If they can put their hand up. Thank you. So we are all creative people. We really want to design something which is out of the world and which is really good looking, etc. But at the same time, we do not have a blank check to build them. So therefore, I think it's very important for us that we try to balance between the design and at the same time investment. So the store which you see behind in this slide is a store which we built in a flagship store we built in China a few years back. Why I'm showing this to you, because this was one of the top store wherein we invested on digital. Of course, Times Square is number one, but this was in top 2-3 stores. This is a 3-floor stores and roughly close to 6,000 square feet. And the amount of digital which we had in this store was close to 2,000 square feet. It is, of course, was a three-sided shop front, so we had to have a lot of things on the shop front. But at the same time, the cost of building that was only for digital was close to 15% of the overall cost of building the store. So how we are, so we are going to discuss the investment, which we do from a point of view of digital in a store. Then we are going to talk about the impact of the investment which we are doing from a digital perspective, and then finally art and science. So why I am adding this art and science here? Because I strongly believe as a designer, designing a retail store is all about art and science. And art to me is, as we discussed earlier, is how do we make the store beautiful looking, impactful for the consumer and enhance the consumer experience. Science is all about, to me, is number. We all have a number to hit when it comes to building a store for the company. And the success is about how do we create the right balance, and that's what we are going to discuss today. Let's look at the investment. And this is purely from a store designer's point of view. So, generally we look at the hardware cost as number one, and which is the highest cost within the digital display investment. And it depends on resolution. And again, I do not want to claim here that I'm the most knowledgeable person from a digital perspective. But what I'm saying that this is how we, from a designer's perspective, look at when we invest in digital. So resolution of the screen to us is a big factor. When we go for lower pitches, the cost is extremely high compared to the high pitch screens. Size and shape. As a brand, as a global brand, when you are investing in this globally in multiple countries, you want to have the sizes which are standard so that your content can run properly. And shape. If you see, if you remember the picture which you just saw before, we had the screens which were totally customized. We could afford that because that was a flagship store and we were expected to do higher business, but we cannot afford them in a store which is standard 1500, 2000 square feet store. So therefore size. Energy efficient. He mentioned that now a lot of screens are available which are energy efficient, but maybe they are expensive upfront when from investment perspective. So we have to look at whether how many years or how many months it will take us to kind of offset the initial investment cost. A location of the screen, again referring back to the picture, the higher we go from an installation perspective, the installation cost goes significantly higher. So therefore we have to look at where exactly we are installing the screen within the shop front. Content creation cost. I think this is the cost when we all, so I would say I've been in the company for 15 years and we really started to look at digital seriously close to 10 years back, 2015, 2016, that was the time we started initially, specifically in the markets like Middle East, UK, US, which was slightly advanced, Japan, Australia, etc. That's where we started to look at digital. But we thought digital means hardware. That was the biggest mistake initially many brands do. They just keep on adding screens in their store, but the content creation cost is also quite expensive, specifically when we look at local content. So therefore, within the content creation cost, it depends on whether the content is global, so that you can run it in multiple stores across the globe, or you are creating a local content. If you have a global content, then of course the cost reduces because you are multiplying it or dividing it by multiple stores. But if we have local specific content, the cost for running the screen goes higher. Brand content or the product content, whether if we have the brand content, of course we can spread it across many stores. But if it is a product content, then we have to look at the store segment. We cannot have all the product in all the stores. Specifically looking at the size of the brand which we cannot have it. So, for example, a premium store, let me give you an example of the India store. So from a premium store perspective, you will have a product called Red Loop, which I'm wearing right now. But I cannot have a Red Loop product in a tier 3, tier 4 market. So therefore, I cannot run that particular content. A generic versus specific, which is similar to what we said earlier, whether it is a generic video which can be run everywhere, versus a video which can be run in a particular store only. Content management cost, it is one thing to create the content. It is even difficult, or it is even more complicated to manage the content, update the content consistently for the consumer. Because it requires approvals. I'm again talking from a global perspective that China has a very different approval for running the content to a Saudi Arabia, to Australia, to a US. So this is the cost which we generally used to ignore earlier in the day, but now, of course, this has become significantly important for us to look at this. And this is not only a one-time investment, it is also investment on a monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis. Operational cost, which is, of course, electricity, subscription, and local body approvals, as I said, that we have to go and continuously take approvals from the local bodies. And I remember doing this in the China store was a nightmare, taking the approvals again and again, going back to those local bodies. Of course, the maintenance, upkeep of the general hardware, etc. So now we have just seen how much, what are the different investments we have to do for bringing the technology or bringing the hardware, or bringing the digital display in our store. Now let's look at the impact. What is the impact of having these things in our stores? And again, I don't want to claim the list which I have can be changed, can be made even longer than what it is. But I thought let's discuss these which we have in front of us. Increase the footfall. As I said earlier, now most of the brands are doing this, and there is a cutthroat competition from a point of view of the amount of money which the brand want to invest in a store to attract the consumer. But as long as, so what I'm trying to say that if our shop fronts specifically are attractive and they are impactful, it drives the footfall. We have seen this, it does happen. right? It also happens based on what kind of store we have, whether in a mall or in a high street, and we'll come to that in a moment, but it does, right? Brand awareness, specifically if you're launching a new product or going into a new city, we need to educate the consumer about the brand. Therefore, these screens do help. Artful expression of the brand. You saw the initial pictures. There was no Levi's on those LED screens. There was no product on the LED screens. It was the artful expression of the brand. And it can change over a period of time. Store navigation, I think is the most important. I will just refer to a consumer insight study which we have done a few years back. Specifically for the young consumers, we had learned that they do not want to be told or guided. Go there, go here, pick up the product. No, they want to explore themselves. And these screens can help us in terms of guiding them to the product which they are looking for. Product education and promotions. Again, while the screens at the shop front can bring the consumer in, but then what? We have to, and these screens can be used to guide the consumer in terms of what product they are having. I just saw a screen outside. You can scan the QR code, it gives you the knowledge of the product. So that, and then specifically if you are running the promotion, you can use the screens as well. Consumer engagement, of course, all these things are all about engaging the consumer into the store. Impulse purchase. Most of our consumers do not walk into a Levi store to buy a wallet or a belt. They come to buy either a pair of denim or a top, right? But these screens can inspire the consumer to buy more, buy the wallets, the bags, the belts, etc. Impulse purchase. They do provide a sense of modernity and innovation. And I always feel that there is a dynamic energy into the store when I come in and see things moving around inside the store. Real-time updates. We spoke about the content management system. We can update the content real-time in terms of offers which we have, promotions which we have. Fitting room experience. A few years back, there was and we saw that in one of the videos, the digital mirror, right? It was something which a few brands tried. Everyone had their own experience, good or bad, so I wouldn't go to that, but it can provide you that additional experience which at times we are looking for. Ease of checkout, of course, and sustainability. Why I'm adding sustainability here? Because what is the traditional way to have the papers in the store, right? So if we have the digital signages inside the store, we can avoid paper. And it's not only about the paper, about the logistics as well. So it's something which is very, very interesting looking at the future. So how these things impact the retail KPIs? And again, I don't want to claim that I'm a retail guru, so I'll just attempt here. So footfall, we've seen that the footfall, the digital on the shop front does inspire the consumer to come inside the store, impacts the footfall. Conversion, once the consumer is inside the store, the education on the product, right? Store navigation, it is helping the conversion, the consumer to convert and buy. The conversion, it does impact the conversion. Average transaction value. Once the consumer comes in, they see a product which is more premium. Maybe these screens can help inspire the consumer to buy expensive stuff and therefore impacting my ATV. UPT, we spoke about the impulse buy. Someone coming to my store to buy a denim, we can help them buy a belt, a wallet, or a bag, ultimately impacting the UPT. So we've seen the investment, we have seen the impact, we have seen the impact on the retail KPIs. Now let's look at the question here is how do we balance, right? That's where we started from. So to me, the balance is creating the right strategy in terms of digital implementation in your store, right? And before going to this, I'll just show you a typical store layout for us. It could be different for other retailers, multiple floors, etc. I'm just talking about one single floor. So starting from this side, shop front, of course, and shop front can have two kind of LED screens. Number one, a screen which is facing outside, or the screen which is facing the consumer. So depending on where the store is, if the store is in atrium, then we'll have to focus on screen which is facing outside. But if we are in a corridor and all the stores are on this side, the consumer looks at the right-hand side. And this is based on the study which we had done for our stores only. The screens were more, especially in a mall store wherein we are in the corridor, the consumer was looking at the side face of the store, not the screen which is facing outside. Once the consumer is in, we can have LED screens to educate the consumer from a product perspective, or also marketing content can be run. Then, in a typical 2,000 or 1,500 square feet store, you want the consumer is in, but you want the consumer to come inside the store, draw them to the back of the store so that they can also look at the product. So that's the space to again have the LED screens within the store. Last but not the least, it's something, the LED screens can be installed around the fitting room. Not only to improve the consumer experience within the fitting room area, but also for call to action. For example, we have in some selected stores, even in India now, we have tailor shops. So people who are in Levi store, who are, mostly they have already decided to buy a jacket, they can see in the screen how the jacket can be customized. So they can see that and go back to the tailor shop and get it customized within the store. So these, and then of course other offers, etc., which we can run on the LED screen. I'll just come back. Yep. So I'm coming back to the strategy now, and to me the strategy is about, and the strategy can be different for a different brand. I'm not saying the strategy which Levi's has, all the brands can have, because it depends on the size of store, what size of store you have, the multiple floors, etc. We generally have a single floor store, a relatively smaller store. So again, it can be different for different brands. So therefore, making priorities for me where to install LED screens is very, very important. So whether it is shop front, whether it is in store, front facing and side facing, we just saw in the layout, product content or a marketing content. Optimizing the screen resolution, as we discussed initially, extremely important for me to manage my budget. But at the same time, I cannot have it depends on where the consumer is going to see the screen from. Right? I cannot have a P5 screen when the consumer is seeing it from 10 feet. It has to be higher pitch. Standardized screen sizes and aspect ratio, especially for the brands like us who have stores in more than 100 countries, and we build 800,000 stores every year, we have to have standardized screen size. So that we can also, from a hardware perspective, reduce the cost. We can order in bulk, same size. At the same time, we can also run contents which are consistent. Optimize the content. We spoke about whether we should create the content which is more global, which is more generic, which can be spread across multiple stores, or we create the content for a specific store. And by saying so, I'm not at all saying that we should not create specific content. They are required for a particular product, for a particular store. But we have to create the right balance here. Another thing which is very important from my perspective is knowing the consumer profile, right? Where your store is, what is the consumer? What is the consumer looking at? Are they looking at a higher experience, or are they are more transactional in terms of, they are looking at value? And based on that, we can also create strategy for what store, what kind of investment we should be doing from a digital perspective. Regular consumer feedback, I think this is something which we used to miss initially, that we were not getting the feedback from the consumer. Okay, we have installed LED screens. Okay, we have invested hundreds and thousands of dollars having LED screens on store. But what is the impact? What is the consumer saying? Are they really looking at it? Are they really, are they really feeling that their experience is enhanced, and therefore it is converting into the buy to purchase the product? So therefore, we did, I think it's very important that we regularly do the consumer feedback and keep on refining the strategy. It doesn't mean that because I've made the strategy today, the same strategy will run. I think we'll have to keep on getting the feedback from the consumer, keep on getting upgrading information from the market from a screen perspective, and keep on refining the strategy. So at the end, I skipped one. Yeah. At the end, I think, as I said, what does success look like to me? To me, it's about continuously refining the strategy, as we just said. In-store experience, which is also about the staff. Only the LED screens are not going to sell your product. You have to have the staff. You have to have the environment. You have to have the lighting in the store, air conditioning in the store. You have to have style lounges in the store when the consumer can relax a bit, and so on and so forth. And then last but not the least, the product. No matter how great LED screens I have in my store, no matter how great the staff is, the product is the king. So I have to have the product at the right time. I cannot run LED content, for a heavy winter wear and the temperature outside is 42 degrees centigrade in Delhi. So end of the day, it's the right combination between the strategy, in-store experience, and the product which will bring success to the strategy which we create. So I'll end there. I welcome any question. And I'll attempt to answer. I don't again claim that I am the guru here and I'll answer everything. I'll attempt to answer.
Yes, we've got one question. Can we have a mic brought on over? Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm Rajesh. I represent Macromedia. Okay, so...
Can't hear you. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Come down.
Please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I represent Macromedia. What I need to ask is, how does the utility of digital screens change in a retail environment like yours, where you're selling one brand per se, versus a multi-retail outlet which is primarily focused on selling the product rather than creating a brand? How does the two different environments differ from a digital experience perspective?
Can you elaborate the question? I'm sorry, I did not get.
Okay, so for example, let's, if I may take names,
Yes, please.
I saw a lot of focus when you were talking about the digital elements being put up in your store. They were experience elements that you were talking about,
Yes.
which are more brand specific.
Yes.
Right? So you were talking about how you use your the screens to drive brand.
Yes.
Right? I didn't see much focus there in trying to drive promotions, if I may
Yes.
call them so.
Ah,
Right?
Yes.
Versus a Croma, which doesn't own the brand, but sells multiple of this. So what is the role of digital elements? How do they differ in these two environments?
I think from our perspective, a single brand, being a single brand, versus you're saying the brands which is selling multiple products. I think absolutely these things do have a role to play. Knowing that, so how do we convert the consumer from a promotional perspective? I have only one brand to sell, but if there are multiple brands, and I'm hoping that I'm trying to, I'm making sense here. You have to have, the consumer needs to know more about the particular offer, because there are so many brands within the same environment. They have so many options to buy. So if I do not shout, let's say I'm Samsung TV, if I do not shout, I think we'll lose on the brand will lose on opportunity. In my case, it is only one brand. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I think we've got one closing question. Yes, that's going to be the final question into lunch.
Akash, brilliant presentation, and very insightful, very practical. My question is that most brands tend to spend on digital screens in two major areas. One is behind the cash desk.
Yes.
A lot of it comes on pillars or walls where the product is not very close by, right? One, it's a two-part question. One, what's the utility of something like that, a digital presence in that sense? What are we trying to achieve? Versus second, I think we saw something together
Yes.
where things are integrated into the shopping journey, into the racks, where people spend 60 to 70% of their in-store
Yes.
time. What would you say is the use case for these two different elements, and which one and how would you use it in your design?
Yeah, it's a great question. And why I'm saying so, because the store which I showed on my slide, we had LED screen on each of the fixtures, especially the wall fixtures, and it was giving education to the consumer about that particular product. Where we failed, and therefore the strategy has to be refined, as I said, that we couldn't just manage the content update on a regular basis, on a scale basis. So that's the reason I think if we have consistent product, so our product also varies store to store, country to country, even state to state at times, based on the geographies and the weather, etc. So as long as we can have the scale, I think that's the best way to do, because when I'm standing in front of my wall, of a product wall, I want to know what the wall, especially going back to the consumer insight, I said, especially young consumer, which we want to attract, they do not want to be told this is what it is. They want to see for themselves that what the product is. And looking at the column, etc., yes, they are, because see, again, balancing the ROI, I cannot remove my wall panels and do LED screens, because I'm losing the space for capacity. And whether we have to sell product. So therefore, utilizing these columns and the space which are not useful for having a fixture could be ideal space for having LED screens.
All right. We're going to request you, sir, to kindly take that question offline because of the paucity of time. But thank you so much for engaging. That's why we're here. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Akash Jha. Thank you very much, sir.